What happens when a person stops obeying the invisible rules of consumerism? No more default buying. No more silent conformity. Just a backpack, a mat, and the unshakable will to design life from scratch. This isn't a rebellion with fire and flags. This is anarcho minimalism. It doesn't scream. It subtracts. Quietly. Decisively. And in doing so, it reveals something almost no one dares to chase today: complete inner sovereignty. In the next 12 minutes, we'll uncover a path once walked by exiled poets, desert monks, and off-grid thinkers who believed freedom wasn't won, it was chosen. This is about more than decluttering your closet. This is about escaping a culture of compulsive more and stepping into a mindset where less is not a lack, it's a weapon. Stick around, especially for point 3, where we explore the forgotten principle that made ancient lives not just simpler, but far more complete. There's a quiet defiance that begins when a person chooses to walk away, not from society entirely, but from the invisible scaffolding that props it up. Anarcho-minimalism, in its purest form, is not about running to the woods or escaping civilization. It's about the internal decision to stop obeying the economic, social, and material codes that shape most modern lives without consent. It's a rejection, not of comfort, but of coercion. A life where what you own is no longer dictated by what you're told to desire. Walk into any big box store, and you'll notice something strange. Endless aisles, curated lighting, engineered scents. You're not just shopping, you're being conditioned. Anarcho-minimalism begins when you become conscious of that conditioning, and more importantly, choose to unlearn it. It is the courage to no longer see value in accumulation, but in alignment. To recognize that true freedom cannot coexist with dependency on trends, on objects, on the affirmation of others. History remembers the Stoic Spartans, who believed in functional sufficiency, not indulgence. But the real fire of anarcho-minimalism burns in the smaller, quieter stories. The mid-century Alaskan homesteader who built a life with her own 2 hands and lived her final years with a smile and 2 pots. The 1920s American railhopper who had nothing but a notebook and a stubborn need to understand the world on his own terms. These were not outlaws. They were cartographers of simplicity. To adopt anarcho-minimalism today is to see through the illusion that stuff equals stability. It's to ask, what would remain of me if everything I owned vanished tonight? Would I panic, or would I finally begin? Because the deeper you go into this path, the more you realize, owning nothing isn't emptiness. It's precision. It's living with such exact intention that even your silence becomes a kind of architecture. And in that architecture, anxiety has no door, and meaning no longer hides. Let's now explore where this rebellion leads, into a freedom modern life rarely allows. What would it look like to build a life not from blueprints of profit or polish, but from stillness, purpose, and restraint? Anarcho-minimalism doesn't merely ask us to reduce. It asks us to reconstruct, not our houses or our wardrobes, but our sense of shelter, the internal spaces where clarity resides. Where most chase square footage, the anarcho-minimalist begins with something more elusive: internal spaciousness. In post-war America, the dream of the house on the hill became synonymous with success. More walls, more rooms, more furniture to fill them. But quietly, behind the curtains, the emotional cost grew. The home became less of a refuge and more of a warehouse for stress, for debt, for decisions we didn't truly make. Anarcho-minimalism reverses that architecture. It rebuilds life not with drywall, but with discernment. With the courage to ask, is this mine, or was this handed to me? To understand this philosophy is to look at shelters differently. The Mongolian gur, round and collapsible, designed to travel with the seasons. The adobe homes of the American Southwest, sun-dried and earthbound, made of the very land they rest on. These weren't just buildings. They were reflections of lives attuned to the rhythms of necessity, not novelty. Anarcho-minimalism takes a similar stance, not nostalgic, but intelligent. It says, build a life where everything has earned its place, or it has no place at all. There is deep relief in this way of living. The fewer decisions you must make about what to wear, where to sit, what to clean, what to hide, the more cognitive space you reclaim. Decision fatigue fades. Time loosens. You begin to notice what others miss. The tone of morning light, the sound of your own breath in an uncluttered room. These are not poetic flourishes. They are daily victories in a world that trades your attention for its profit. So what if, instead of building up, we built inward? What if simplicity wasn't an aesthetic, but an infrastructure? Point by point, Anarcho Minimalism answers that, not in slogans, but in silence. And next, we'll uncover how this silence reshapes time itself. In the doctrine of Anarcho Minimalism, time is not a commodity to manage. It is sacred territory to defend. While the modern world urges you to spend time efficiently, to squeeze productivity from every moment, the anarcho-minimalist takes a different stance. Time is not meant to be spent. It is meant to be lived. And in reclaiming it, we find one of the most profound freedoms of all. Consider how quietly our hours are taken. The endless scroll of a glowing screen. The silent agreements to attend, to reply, to update, to check in. Each micro-distraction costs you moments that never return. But it's not just distraction, it's obedience. Time becomes fragmented by outside demands until it no longer feels like yours. Anarcho-minimalism resists this deeply, not with rage or withdrawal, but with refusal. It says, I will not give my most valuable asset to systems that do not see me. I will reclaim the clock. This isn't a romantic rejection of technology or ambition. It is a disciplined reorientation toward slowness. To wake without panic. To complete a task without 5 others open in the background. To cook a meal with your hands and attention fully present, not just for fuel, but for grounding. These moments are not inefficient. They are restorative. They repair what the noise erodes. There are echoes here of the early Trappist monks who measured their days not in urgency, but in rhythm. Work, silence, reflection, rest, balanced, intentional, uninterrupted. Their schedule wasn't rigid. It was anchored. And in that anchoring, they discovered what modern life too often forgets. Peace isn't found in escape. It's found in presence. Anarcho-minimalism treats your calendar like your body. It must be kept lean, strong, and uncompromised. Because once you own your time again, you begin to hear life whisper in places it once screamed. In the pauses between appointments. In the stillness between thoughts. And it's in those quiet margins that a more conscious life begins to emerge. Next, we move from time to relationships. Not in how many you have, but in how few are truly necessary to feel whole. At the heart of anarcho-minimalism lies a piercing question. Who truly belongs in your life? And who simply arrived? Not everyone who walks with you deserves to stay, and not every connection nourishes. In a culture built on networking, social currency, and endless digital interaction, the anarcho-minimalist returns to a forgotten wisdom. Relationships, like possessions, must be curated, not collected. Modern society has quietly replaced depth with volume. Friend counts, followers, invitations, group chats. It's a landscape of constant contact, but often unbearable emptiness. And with each unfiltered connection, something is lost: attention, energy, clarity. Anarcho-minimalism offers a radical yet ancient antidote. It says, build a circle so small it becomes sacred. Speak with few, connect with intention, and guard your inner life as a sanctuary, not a showroom. You can trace this ethic through time. The indigenous elders of North America once taught that a person's wisdom was reflected not in how many people they led, but in how well they listened to a trusted few. The Japanese tea masters hosted ceremonies for just one guest at a time, believing true connection required presence, not a crowd. These were not acts of exclusion, they were acts of precision. Anarcho-minimalism mirrors this precision by inviting only those who add meaning, not momentum. To live this way is not to be cold, it is to be clear. You begin to differentiate between companionship and noise, between obligation and genuine resonance. You learn to say no, not out of selfishness, but but out of reverence for your time, your space, your mind. Fewer texts, deeper conversations. Fewer visits, richer presence. This is the slow, deliberate architecture of belonging. What emerges is a startling peace, a sense of being seen not by many, but by enough. And in that enoughness, social anxiety dissolves. Validation loses its grip. You are no longer performing. You are simply being, surrounded only by those who understand your silence as much as your words. In our final section, we turn inward to the core of all minimalist rebellion, the self that remains when the world's expectations are stripped away. Strip away the clutter, the distractions, the social obligations, and something unexpected remains, not emptiness, but sovereignty. This is the final frontier of anarcho minimalism, a return to the self that does not need permission to exist, to choose, or to walk a different path. A self no longer shaped by algorithmic suggestions, market desires, or cultural templates. A self that is startling in its quiet and immovable in its knowing. In modern life, identity is often outsourced, constructed through job titles, fashion labels, curated bios, or even political alignments. We are told who to be, then rewarded for how well we comply. But the anarcho-minimalist sees through this scaffolding and gently steps away, not in rebellion, but in remembrance. They remember that identity is not built through accumulation, but through refinement. That the truest version of self is often buried beneath layers of inherited noise. This inner reclamation echoes the lives of those who lived deliberately on the fringes. The desert fathers of early Christianity who wandered into silence to strip the ego bare. The shakers of early America who built orderly, simple communities not out of poverty, but purpose. They didn't ask how to stand out. They asked how to stand true, and then live their answers. To walk this path today means embracing decisions that confuse others. You may downsize when others upgrade. You may walk away from a high-paying job to regain time. You may dress the same daily not for lack of imagination, but because your creativity is now reserved for life itself. Each choice becomes a mirror, not of who the world wants you to be, but who you've quietly always been. And in that alignment, joy returns. A quiet joy, not the loud, performative kind, but the kind that rises in solitude, in simplicity, in doing what is right even when no one claps. You begin to live not for validation, but for truth. And once you taste that truth, it is impossible to trade it for noise again. Let's close this journey with a reflection on what it truly means to live more by owning less, and why the future belongs to those who choose with courage. When you let go of what the world insists you need, you don't shrink, you expand. Anarcho-minimalism isn't just about living with less. It's about remembering that you were never meant to be buried beneath obligations, distractions, or borrowed identities. You were meant to live deliberately, breathe deeply, and choose your path without apology. This is not minimalism as an aesthetic. This is minimalism as liberation. If this message stirred something in you, don't stop here. There's a deeper journey waiting. On this channel, you'll find other paths that walk beside this one, stories of microtopia, where small spaces unlock vast freedom, and reflections from the hollow era, where silence becomes strength. Explore the playlists. Let them challenge you, inspire you, and above all, help you reclaim your life piece by intentional peace. You've just taken a powerful step. Now keep walking.